So I'm over here in Photoshop with two images open. You can see up here in my tabs. And I'm going to go get another image. So we're going to have three different images to look at. And what we're going to talk about in this video is image resolution and how you can look at an image and get some information from the tabs up here that's already going to tell me, is this an image that's really only large enough for the web, or is this an image that I can print out? And if so, how large can I print it? And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is how you can take a large image, something that is set up for print, as your projects will be, and how you can make it smaller so it's appropriate for the web. So I'm going to just jump over to Firefox for a second, where I have an image open from my last practice, where I was just doing an image search. And I'm going to view this image, and I'm going to right click on it and say copy image. Then I'm going to go back over to Photoshop, and I can use the keyboard shortcut Control N or go to File, New. And because what Photoshop's going to do is it's automatically going to assume that whatever I just copied to my clipboard, I'm going to want to create a document that's same size. So it gives me the correct dimensions, 500 pixels by 339 pixels with a resolution of 72. That's what that cat image was. I click OK. And now I can paste it in. I could go up to Edit, Paste, or use the keyboard shortcut Control V. So now I have these three images open here, and I'd like you to look up at the tabs. This tab tells me I'm viewing my image at 100%. This image is at 50%, and this image is at 25%. So this already gives me a lot of information. I can tell you if you have an image that is open and you are viewing it at 100% on your screen and it's only taking up a small amount of your screen like this, this is an image only set up for web. You will not be able to print this out at any kind of reasonable size. Reasonable means larger than 1 inch by 1 inch. If I have an image that is already viewing at about 25% and it's taking up this amount of my screen, that's an image that is set up for print. So now where can I go to find those numbers and find out exactly how large I could print this? From the main menu at the top, I'm going to go to Image, Image Size. And here I get a window which gives me my units and my resolution. And because this image already came in and was set up from the web, it's displaying as pixels. But if you're doing this and following along with a similar image, or you're getting something from the web, perhaps it's coming in as inches. So it's easy to switch back and forth. If you're thinking about an image for print, you want your units to be inches. If you're thinking about an image for the web, you want it to be, not in percent, but in pixels. So pixels are for the web, inches for print. So I'm talking about print first. I'm going to leave it at inches. Well, this looks like I could print this image out to be about 7 inches by 5, almost a 7 by 5. That's not so small. Okay, but my resolution is only at 72. If you go back in your mind to that example I showed you from the last lecture, where I had the Photoshop logo printed out at a resolution of 72 and the resolution of 300. Do you remember how it looked at 72? It was blurry. If you take an image and you try to print it out with only 72 pixels per inch, those pixels have to be larger. It's like trying to make a mosaic with quarters now versus dimes. So it's going to be blurry, or something even larger than quarters, bricks versus dimes. It's going to be blurry. So I have to make my resolution higher. Now, I don't want Photoshop to add any pixels for me, and I'll explain why in a minute. So to make sure Photoshop does not add any pixels and I'm just working with the original amount of my pixels, I'm going to turn off resample. If we go back to the example I talked about in the last lecture, if I have 12 million pixels, all I want to do is change how many of those pixels are displayed per inch. I don't want Photoshop to add any for me. So by turning off resample, I'm keeping my original amount of pixels. I'm just shifting how many are displayed per inch. So if you remember, my target resolution for a print image is approximately 250. I can go up a little, I can go down a little, so I'll have it at 250. And what you probably noticed is there's an inverse relationship between my width and my height and my resolution. When I increased my resolution, my width and my height went down. I'm going to hold the Alt key down, and my cancel the cut button becomes a reset, and I'm going to do that again, just to make sure you got it. So here are the original settings for my image. I'm going to turn off resample. It's switched to inches, or I could have switched it myself, but Photoshop actually switched it to inches for me. And I'm going to change the resolution to 250. So notice I'm at about a 7 by 5. I change it, so I'm increasing how many of my total pixels are displayed per inch, and my inches are reduced. So this is a very small image. If I tried to print this out at a good resolution quality, it would print out as about 2 by 1 inches. If I wanted to print it out at the 5 by 7, I can, but it's going to be blurry. So what's the alternative? The alternative, I'm going to hold the Alt key down again, and my cancel key becomes a reset, is to let Photoshop resample, which means Photoshop is going to add pixels for me. I'm going to cancel this out and create a new document here to show you an extreme example of what that means when Photoshop adds the pixels for you. I'm going to create a document with a resolution of 72, and it's going to have 2 pixels by 2 pixels, meaning a total of 4 pixels. And now I'm going to zoom in. I'm taking my zoom tool and just clicking. And in case you didn't get it from the lectures last week, by the way, all of your tools have default settings that can be changed with the options bar up here. So when I'm using my zoom tool, I can go up to the option bar and I can make it a zoom out tool. I can also hold the Alt key down and it will switch to a zoom out tool. Or if I was on zoom out, I hold the Alt key down and it switches to a zoom in tool. So that's just a little side note about that tool. The Alt key switches this tool back and forth. I'm now going to take a selection, my rectangular marquee tool, and this is just simply so I can make a demonstration where you can see my 4 individual pixels. So now you can see I have 4 pixels on the screen. And I'm going to go up to Image, Image Size, and I'm going to allow Photoshop to resample for me, and I'm going to make this 4 pixels by 4 pixels, which is going to give me a total of 16 pixels. And that's the end result. That's resampling. This is an extreme example, but you can see what happened. I lost the clarity of my image. It no longer looks like a black square and a white square and a white square and a black square. I have these little black ones and then grays. That's because when Photoshop adds the pixels, it interpolates. I can tell Photoshop to take my 4 by 6 image and print it to be 1,000,000 inches by 1,000,000 inches if I want. It will do it. It's going to do it by adding pixels. It doesn't know exactly what color to put those pixels, so it interpolates. It takes the pixels and it's going to create a blend of a color based on the colors of the pixels near it. And the end result is blurriness or pixelation. So if I go back to my image of the cat and I go up to Image, Image Size again, and I allow it to resample and I'll put it at inches, so you can just see. And I'm going to put the resolution to 250, my target. You can see in the details here, it's kind of zoomed in here. Actually, I can't even tell what I'm looking at because it starts to look so pixelated. Photoshop added those pixels for me, but the end result is going to be a blurry cat. So I'm going to close that out. So the rule, a couple of things we learned here, if I have an image and I open it up, if I copied it from a website and I created a new document, pasted it in, or I open it up directly, and it only takes up a small part of my document area, or maybe even the whole document area, and this is at 100%, that's an image that is not going to have enough digital information to print out large. Let's look at this one. That's at 50%. If I go up to Image, Image Size, and I want to see how large I can print it, I'm going to switch it to inches, turn off resample, and change my resolution to my target resolution, 250, and notice what's going to happen to my width and my height. They're going to go down. So this is an image that I could only print out to be 3 by 4 inches. Now here's an example of why I said sometimes you might want to be able to tweak your resolution. If I'm printing on very high quality photographic paper that's glossy, I might be able to get away with a lower resolution, maybe 220, which makes my image about a ½ inch larger on the width and the height. If I had an Epson printer that specialized in a resolution of 180, I would be able to get an even larger image, 4 by 5.5. Now, if I had to have this image larger, it absolutely had to be printed out, let's say 5 by 6 or something, and I had to ask Photoshop to resample. I'm going to use the Alt key to reset. The rule about resampling is do it in small increments. Switch to inches here. So if I have to resample, I'm not going to go from 72 to 250. I'll go from 72 to 100 and click OK. Then go back up to image size, and put in 125, for example. 125. Click OK. And then go back up and keep adding it in increments of 25 or 50 till I get up to 250. Because the idea is, if interpolation happens by sampling, adding new pixels and sampling from the colors nearby, if I add 50%, that's 50% that has to be resampled. But if I add in smaller increments, I'm always sampling from something that is closer to my original. So if you have to do it, because you have to get your image larger, do it in small increments. And again, don't be fooled by the fact that your image might look great on your screen, but it doesn't look as good when it's printed. You should always go by what the hard numbers are. 250 is your guideline. We can look at this last image and see if it's any different in size. Image size, and if I turn off resample and I change my resolution to 250, I see that this is the largest image I have so far. This one could print out to be 6 inches by 10 inches. And again, I kind of already had that clue, because when I looked up at my tab, I saw that Photoshop automatically reduced the size of this image to be viewed at 25%, because Photoshop assumes that I want to be able to see my entire image, so it zooms it down so I can see the entire image fit on my screen. So the one that showed up at 25% was the one I could print the largest. Okay, so in this video, we really just talked about how to be able to look at your image by going to image size, and figure out, is this an image for the web, or if it's for print, and if so, how large can I print it? And if you have to print it larger and you don't have enough digital information, you can allow Photoshop to resample. If you have to resample, do it in small increments. In my next video, I'm going to talk about how to take an image and to reduce it in size by using resampling. So we're going to throw away some digital information so we can take a print image and put it for the web.